guys, Erica here with the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. I am so happy you are here today. You are in for a great episode. We are going to be lively and we might go a little long. So if you're looking for a short episode, this is probably not the one today. Today's episode is to I Got This, Mastering Your Business Mojo with Kate and Carrie. So, we're going to talk a little bit about how you turn chaos in your childcare into a symphony of success. We're going to talk a lot about business today. I'm very thrilled to have Kate and Carrie from the Childcare Conversation with Kate and Carrie. Or is it Carrie and Kate? How does it go exactly? Carrie and Kate?
Conversations with Kate and Carrie.
Kate and Carrie. Okay. I wasn't sure the order. So their podcast has been out for a while. It is a wonderful podcast. You have to check it out. But not only are they podcasters, they also have written many books. And they just had a book that came out. It's called I Got This. If you're ready to tackle your business challenges and head on, transform those moments, I'm going to say the bad word, to victories, then you're in for a treat today. So let's jump into the episode and welcome Kate and Carrie. First time having two folks on at the same time, but this is going to be a supercharged business journey and we are ready to talk about it. So welcome to the show, ladies.
Welcome, Erica. We are so excited to be here. Thank you for letting us join. And for those who haven't heard, Erica joined us a couple of weeks ago, so you can probably go find her on our episode. Actually, I know when it releases, and so actually next week, next Tuesday.
Awesome.
Right around the corner.
But it might be last Tuesday when they listen.
Okay,
it might be.
September 3rd. There we go.
Keep your eyes open. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. You hit their YouTube channel so you can listen to them on any of the regular platforms. And then they also have a YouTube channel. So make sure that you check that out. So here's what I want to say before we really get into like the question part. So today's episode is really important. Why are we talking about this? Women own approximately 80% of all childcare centers in the U.S., making them the driving force that is essential in the industry. By broadly overall, businesses that are not childcare, all over businesses, about 42% of them are run by women in our country. That translates to over 13 million women-owned businesses in various sectors. This represents a significant portion of the entrepreneurial landscape. However, navigating challenges for business owners can be a pain in the butt. Today, Kate and Carrie are here to help you transform those overwhelming moments into opportunities for success, providing tools and strategies to thrive because we cannot see another childcare center close. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And I'm tired of reading books that are written by white guys who work in universities, who have not started a business ever, and who just talk about business as a theory, as opposed to people like you and us, you and I don't know how to word that, but ladies who have been there, who have gotten our hands dirty, who have snaked the toilets, who have done what needed to be done to make a business not only survive, but thrive. There need to be more books written towards women in business ownership. And there needs to be a little bit of sass because most of us have a little bit of sass because we've had to deal with
a lot,
some stuff to get where we are.
For sure. So let's talk about that. What do you feel like was the biggest beep moment that you have faced when you started your entrepreneurial journey, and how'd you turn it around?
So when I first
can I preface this?
Yeah.
Let me preface this. Hold on, Carrie. Let me do a preface real quick because I want to frame some of this. So first of all, I was doing the math while we were talking because I don't think we've actually ever sat this down, but between Carrie and I, we've started over 10 businesses and not all of them were successful. We are also third generation entrepreneurs, and it was our moms, the generation right before us. And so we come by this, I'm going to use the term naturally in very loose sense. And we are absolutely passionate about the business part. So although we are currently in childcare and we've been in childcare for over 30 years, we've had side hustles. This was the side hustle. We've done lots of different components, which I'm sure other people, other women listening to this podcast have probably had. Oh, that little side business, selling candles or t-shirts or you name it, right? Pick your product. And so we've had brick and mortar. We've had not brick and mortar. We've learned a lot about ourselves in the last 35 years as entrepreneurs, and the quantity of beep moments is probably more than you have time for in any episode if we just talked about those moments. So I wanted to frame it a little bit just so that when people are going, well, it was a childcare center. Well, it wasn't just a childcare center. We've had a variety of business, from printing companies to publishing companies to substitute services to direct sales, and a variety. I didn't even count the direct sales because
that's
I think
too
I tried
many.
to sell everything.
So,
my 20s.
Let's see. If we were to say what was my biggest Scheisse, we'll just do it in German. Moment from when I started in childcare, it was probably that I had always planned on opening a school, and I had a toddler, and I was pregnant, and the school I was working at, the kids could be at that school until the semester they turned 2. And I was on the waiting list at all of the programs for, 2+ that I thought were quality programs in town. And I hadn't gotten a single phone call from anybody about where I was on the waiting list. And I had less than 6 months before my child was going to have no place to be. So I had to open the school then because I needed a place for my toddler to go. And then I was pushing another human out and she needed a place to go. So someday I will open a school became I will open a school in the next 6 months very, very quickly because I needed quality care for my kids. And having worked in the industry since I was 16, I had a high standard of what I considered a quality program. And also I needed to be able to afford it on a childcare wage. So that was my Scheisse moment because I needed a place for me and my kids to be that was quality care. And so that was why I had to start when I did. And so I bought a building. I didn't have time for a contractor. I took down the walls. I put up the sheetrock. I dug the soil up so that we could have the pea gravel. Like, I did all of it because I couldn't wait for the amount of time it would take for a contractor to do it. So that's probably mine. I hadn't thought about that in a while, but I saw your question and I was like, okay, let me think about that.
What about you, Kate?
So if we're going to talk about my first grown-up business, because, I feel like I need to preface that. So my first grown-up business was with my first husband, and we started a printing company. And his parents owned a printing company. He worked at a different printing company. The printing company that he worked at decided to automate. So they went to big, large Xerox copiers, and he was suddenly out of a job. And we didn't have the money to set up a brick and mortar business. And, his parents already had one. We already saw that business owned them. Like, they had to be physically in that space from 9 to 5. So we started, again, long before this was like 32, 33 years ago. I took, believe it or not, a laptop, and we won't call it, the thing weighed like, I don't know, it was a brick, right? And so we took that to the clients. We did the design work at the client's office. And then we would rent space from 3 different printers in the evening to print the jobs we needed. And this is what we did before we had our son. And so when our son was born, I realized that carrying this very large computer and a car seat into people's businesses to do their design work was not going to be very efficient. And so I opened a registered family home. He went off and did some independent consulting and contracting. And we found ourselves having 2 businesses instead of 1. And that lasted for a little while until I realized that nobody else knew how to run a child care center, a registered family home around the state of Ohio. And the Ohio Small Business Development Center hired me to go around the state and train them. And so then he got to be a stay-at-home dad. So that was a whole other, we were quite the rebels 30 years ago when, because, people didn't, men did not do that 29 years ago. That was quite the, we were shaking things up.
You were a weirdo, is what you're saying, is that you were a weirdo.
There we go. I was a weirdo. I was going for trailblazer, but sure, we'll take weirdo.
So let's talk a little bit about, what did you find was like the most challenging? Was it marketing? Was it legal issues? What did you find the most challenging when you started up your business?
When I started my business?
Yeah.
All of the above. All of it. Starting a business when you are 1 or 2 people, you got to know all of it. And, if you haven't done the math and you're listening, basically Carrie and I were both in our very early 20s when we started our first businesses. And so, although we had college experience, we had life experience, we had mothers who were self-employed and entrepreneurs, we were exposed, but we didn't understand everything, right? So we thought we could do it all. And Carrie proved that she tried to, even, 8, 9 months pregnant. And we tried to figure out what was the most important. And I'd say that probably the very first thing that we struggled with was the balance of what was the most important. Not what did we know how to do. And for me, it was, I wasn't going to ask anybody for help because I could do it myself.
Okay.
Well, I did that too, but I think what was more frustrating for me early on was being taken seriously because I was so very obviously in my 20s. And so I very quickly bought a whole bunch of silk blouses and a whole bunch of blazers because I needed people to perceive me as more of a grown-up than I was with my childcare wardrobe, because I was wearing the things you wear when you work in early childhood and nobody was giving me the time of day. So I had to wear silk t-shirts, which are very easy to wash out in the bathroom when somebody spits up on you, and blazers, so that when somebody came on a tour, I at least read that I was in my 30s instead of in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
And having employees who were twice my age was a big challenge early on. And now, of course, we're on the other side of it, and having employees who have never known life where cell phones weren't everywhere and trying to pry those things out of their hot little hands is a whole different, divide from the different generations.
So in your book, do you talk a little bit about how does somebody identify what they really should be working on?
Absolutely. So every chapter shares a story. They are not all our stories. Before coming into even being self-employed, I was a certified business analyst with the SBA, which is part of why I was in the I know how to do this mode. And so as we worked through the book, one of the things that we wanted to do was to make it where, let's just say you're having an issue, you can go to that chapter and just read that chapter. Not only get a story that you can probably relate to, but you also get some real, here's something you can do today, and you have a spot at the end of the chapter that's, okay, it's time to take action. Here's your homework. And maybe it's the educators in us, but we wanted to make sure that you had some real actionable items at the end of every chapter that you personally got to do something with instead of just reading it in a book?
Okay. It's funny just listening to your guys' story. I think everybody comes into this field in a unique, different way. So for me, I also came from a family of entrepreneurs. I also started in a business, not the business, a business in my 20s. My first business, which was a candle shop, by the way, Smutty, was a candle shop that I had for about 4 years. I didn't get a business loan. I floated the whole thing on a credit card, which is very expensive money, right? I made all those mistakes. That business did not last more than 4 years. Not because I wasn't talented, not because I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know all the aspects of business. So that does happen to the best of us. And then when I came into childcare, I did not come into childcare because I woke up and said, I want to be a teacher. It was actually the opposite. I never babysat a kid in my life. I never went to school for ECE. I had zero interest in watching anybody's kid. I'm just being honest. But what I did know was I just had a child. I was not leaving my child with people I did not know. And so I went to work in a childcare, and where I worked, I cut my salary in half to where I went to go work because I went to work in a childcare. I went from management and retail to childcare. These things do not equate in money. But while I was there within 6 months, I was like, oh my God, like I had all the business background. And sometimes for many of the people listening on the show, it's the opposite. You have all this ECE knowledge, but you're missing that business piece. And for me, the perfect marriage is if you have both. So I had to go backwards. I had to go to school for ECE and learn about ECE and learn about regulations and all of those things. But I knew business really well and I knew people really well. So I did really well. And I can remember going to what you said, Carrie. I was pretty young then. I was like 28 maybe. And a lot of the people I worked with were older than me. And I remember the boss promoting me within 4 months and they said I was a brown nose. And I was like, I'm not a brown nose. I'm just doing what I know what to do. And y'all just lazy. Like, don't be mad at me because I knew what I was doing. But yeah, so we all kind of get here in some kind of, some kind of way. It's either you knew from the start you were going to be a teacher. And I will say this caveat. It is absolutely the best job I've ever had in my life. I absolutely love children, but I didn't know it. I wasn't a parent. I didn't know it then. You know what I did? I just knew.
Absolutely.
I didn't know, but now I know. I love my babies. I'm in my room. I am an on-site owner, and I love it. But I didn't know it then, right? So you can come into this field in so many different ways, but you really do need to have both. You need to have your ECE background, and you need to have a business background. And if you don't, I really encourage that you do that before thinking about opening up a center.
And get the other part, learn the other part. Because being an owner and a director of a childcare center is one of the few management jobs in the world where when you have a bad day, you can go out and go down a slide. And swing on a swing or blow bubbles for toddlers. Like we have some stress relief that is not available to other people. We can just keep Play-Doh on our desk and nobody looks at us like we're weird.
Yeah.
Because it is normal in our industry. I think that being somebody who runs an early childhood program is one of the few jobs where you absolutely know that you're making the world a better place.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to get an awful lot of joy.
Yes.
I was just going to say you get a lot of joy.
Yeah, I told her we were going to chatty because we all like to talk on this podcast here. The other thing I was going to say is for those of you who are a director and think you can open up your own center, I just want to say this because I was a very good director, but I promise you when I opened up my own center, I still had a lot to learn. So make sure that you really, and again, I had owned some other businesses, make sure that you understand there is a big difference between being a director and being an owner. And so because I know some of you out there, I hear you when you're talking, you're gossiping, you could do it better than the owner that the way that the owner is doing it now. Trust me, you don't have to worry about making a $30,000 a week payroll. You're going home, you got your check, you're going to sleep, right? So just be mindful that before you critique the owner that you have, is really hard to be an owner. And there are so many other considerations beyond being the director role. So those are the little pieces I want to throw in there because it's hard. It's hard.
Absolutely, Erica. I mean, one of the things that I think that's really interesting as a director, and I've now been a business coach and consultant like 35 years, and 90% of my clients have been women. So whether I worked in Ohio or the Texas Center for Women's Business Enterprise, or right now I volunteer with a nonprofit and actually help inmates, female inmates who are coming out, transitioning into being self-employed. So there is so many opportunities to create your team. The very first chapter in our book talks about creating your team of experts. And again, these may not be people you've ever met. Erica is probably on your team and you've never even met Erica. But if you're listening to this podcast, she's part of your team. And so if you are a director who's aspiring to be an owner, now's the time to go find all those free classes with organizations like the SBA, the SBDC. Oh, by the way, there is no free money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, unless you are a nonprofit organization, 90% of the time you are not going to find a free grant. COVID was an anomaly. And yes, a lot of states had options and chose to use their money that way, but please do not try to bank on starting a business with a grant.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's a lot of, we were just talking about this. Carrie, I had brought up in, a Facebook group. There is a lot of opportunity right now because there are centers that are closing. And I don't, I again, that breaks my heart, but also it does give some opportunity folks who have been wanting to open a center, who have their business plan ready to go, maybe have been putting money aside. Now you can really get a great deal if you look into, or maybe you have a center and you want to grow. You're ready to expand, right? There's a lot of great opportunity out there. And speaking of the SBA, I love the SBA. I've had seven SBA loans. And it was so excited. I literally today, swear to God on my mom, I opened up the envelope and I said to my sister, we have one payment left. Payment left on a loan that we had. It was a startup loan for one of our locations. I'm like, literally, we owe $2,100 and that bad boy is paid off. So, so there's a lot of great opportunity. So let's talk about how can aspiring childcare entrepreneurs identify their unique selling points in a crowded market, right? There's lots of centers. Some are doing well, some are closing. Universal pre-K is a factor. How do these people who are like, I'm ready to open my center, how do they really wrap their head around what are they going to sell? How are they going to sell it? Because it's a crowded market.
I mean, you've got all kinds of different ways that you can differentiate. You can differentiate based on your educational philosophy. Say you want to have a Montessori program that is Italian immersion, so that all the people who, their grandparents speak Italian, but they don't speak Italian, and their parents speak enough to gossip, but they can't really speak it. And they're like, Dr. Montessori, she was Italian. Let's have an Italian Montessori immersion program. Okay, so that's an educational philosophy way to differentiate yourself. Another one would be the hours you're open. If you're trying to figure it out and there's a center that is available to purchase that is within a mile of a hospital, go talk to the people at the hospital and find out what hours people are having a hard time finding childcare as far as their employees. And then be open a half an hour before that shift and a half an hour after that shift, and just fill up with hospital employees.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's services you provide. So sometimes in like rural communities, they have a van that goes and picks the kids up at their house and takes them to the childcare center. Because people are farming. They don't want to drive 10 miles down to the childcare center to get back to their farm an hour later. By then, it is too hot to be hooking those cows up. No, we want to do that when it's cool early in the morning. And so if the van will go pick up the children and take them to the childcare center, and then the parents pick them up at the end of the day, that's a service you can offer that other childcare centers aren't offering. So it can be your service, your educational philosophy, or the hours you're open. Those are the ones that make the most sense to me about how to differentiate.
Yeah. I love too that you had said about the hospital, which makes me think about this, because I stay very much in the news of what's going on. There are a lot of large businesses that are trying to attract employees. And one of the ways that they're trying to do that is offering on-site childcare facilities. Now, if you run, I don't know, I'm going to make this up, a shoe factory, you don't know anything about running a high quality program. So there could be an opportunity for you who does know how to run a program to approach that business and say, hey, I have a great idea. Do you have space? We can open an on-site license program on site for your employees, and they will pay you to run it. You will get the space. So there are so many ways that you can really do it at a lower cost too if you're really just starting out. There's, so many different ways that you can do that. And don't put all your eggs in one basket too, though. Make sure that
the town that Kate used to live in, one of their newspapers had that. They had an on-site child care center at the newspaper. They provided the space. Somebody came in. They ran it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see more and more for the employees.
Yeah, you're going to see that more and more. 100%. You're going to see that more and more.
Erica, you brought up a great point with that, because I hope that people who are listening, although we see programs closing, sometimes there's a reason. So, because of major employers, they move, they go to different cities, they go to different towns. So just because a building has been a child care center doesn't mean it should still be one. And it's always possible that you've got a facility that might have been grandfathered with some sort of zoning issues or licensing issues. Carrie and I were brought in to turn over a program that was licensed originally for quite a number of kids, but it was grandfathered. And so when we came in under new ownership, we didn't get that grandfather. So here we had this big property that the owner was convinced could have over 100 kids, but it couldn't because there were things like, linked smoke detector systems for 30 grand that needed to be installed. And he wasn't going to do that. So, definitely understanding, as you're figuring out your USP, figure out what is it that you love about the program and what does your community need. So you really need to know who's in your community. You need to know your competition. You need to know where the need is, because that's going to drive a lot of your unique selling proposition. And how busy are your parents? One of my favorites, and Erica, you already do it. I am a school age fiend. I love school age programs, and I think everybody needs a school age program. But even better is a school age program that takes things off the parents' to-do list. So school age programs that have sports teams, piano lessons, dance lessons, make it so that when those kids are picked up at 6, they've got the homework done, their extras are done. The parents can take them home and eat dinner and spend time with their kid, instead of now they pick them up at 6 o'clock, they go through a drive-through, and then they're off to 2 more things before 8 o'clock where they attempt to try to shower and bathe them at a reasonable time. I mean, it's insane. And if you ever have sat down and done the math of how much time school age care, not just regular child care center staff, but just the school age care staff, spend with a school age child versus the parent, that's kind of some scary math. Because, school age care is really, on paper, we call it, 15 hours a week, right? Maybe 3 to 6 quality time. But you know what? Those parents are picking them up. By the time they pick them up and get them home, they've got 1 hour a night. Yeah. If that family has any activities on the weekend, they might have 3 hours a day. Guess what?
Yeah.
They now have less quality time as parents that you do as school age staff. So out of school time is my thing.
Yeah, mine too.
I'll get off my soapbox.
No, mine too. No, that's okay. Let's talk about that. Also, I think a couple of things. Also, a lot of times if you do before and after school, which we do, I'm literally sitting down eating breakfast with these kids and getting them off to start their day. Like, my love is what's sending them off, right? And then when they get off the bus, it's like, how was your day? Let's talk about it, right? So you're you are such a big part of that child's social development, all besides the academic and the homework part. The other thing is for programs, because we're talking about business here, for programs that are really struggling, you're losing your 3-year-olds and your 4-year-olds, expanding into school age is a great way to capture that revenue. And school age kids, you really can have them longer than you can preschool, really, because if a kindergartner starts at 5 years old, you can have them to, in my state, 12. You're talking 8-9 year relationship with the customer if you do it right, which is way longer than you would have an infant or a toddler anyway. So for those of you who are like, oh, I don't know how we're going to do it, we're losing our 3 and 4 year olds, the answer is you're going to take all those kids who graduate out of these state funded pre-K programs, even if you want to offer wraparound care, and then offer 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and so forth up. I mean, it's a no-brainer right there.
I agree. So. we were preaching to the choir. We say the same thing. That, and does your community really have enough infant and toddler care? Because every community I run into, there's always these massive wait lists for infants, and I'm like, then open another infant room.
I mean, that's why we have that whole chapter on who is your best customer. Yeah. You've got to figure out who your best customer is. And is it those school age parents? Is it the infant toddler parents?
Just do your math,
People
though.
think it's the pre-K.
Do your math.
But it's not necessarily.
Do your math, because infant rooms have been lost leaders for a very long time. So do your math.
I agree completely, but it's better than trying to keep staff on an empty room.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely can get creative. And if you aren't really sure, I think that, reaching out to a lot of the people that Erica's had on their show, she's got great people, great guests. Erica as well can answer some of those questions for you if you aren't really sure where to start. If you're in Texas, hook us up. We'd be happy to help you if you're in Oklahoma. If you're in Minnesota, we've got some expansion happening in some other states. So, Erica's got New England. She will take care of you if you are in the New England area. I think she'll take care of you anywhere, but
I sure will.
Erica will definitely help you with that math.
Yeah, and you can always text the show if there's like a specific topic that you want to hear, or a specific guest that you want. Text the show. That comes right to me. You can Facebook me. You can Instagram me. I answer all of my stuff. I answer my emails. I am obsessed. I will answer you anytime, any day. But yeah, like, let us know like what you're struggling with. I mean, that's why we're here, is to help support you guys. I mean, this show is for you. It's, I do like to talk to myself, but mostly the show is for you guys. So, how do you suggest new entrepreneurs balance their creative vision along with practical business needs?
Carefully.
I think the key word that you said there was balance. And to me, balance really comes with a lot of communication. So really having conversations with your family, whatever your family looks like. So if that's significant others or children, make sure that you are not working a 24/7 gig, or if you are, communicate with people and say, this is what I need, or I'd love to spend time with you. But, my school age teacher called out, hey, can you bring dinner here and can we eat here when the program closes, right? Because you've got your own kids. So really be intentional about where you're moving and that balance. Ask for help when you need it. Pay for help when you need it. You are going to be way more successful quicker if you stop trying to do it by yourself. And again, even if these people are people you've never met, it's just a book or a podcast you've listened to, have that relationship with your banker, your CPA, your attorney, because you never know when you're going to need them. And, sometimes you might need two.
Yeah, I think there's another element there, which is, when people say work-life balance, they have this idea of somebody walking on a balance beam. But I think of it much more like an old-fashioned seesaw. And so some of the times you're spending way more time and effort in the business side, and other times you're spending way more time and effort in the family side. Your mom gets COVID. Okay, I'm not going to have a whole lot of time for my business that week because I'm at the hospital. You're expanding, taking on, going up to 6 centers from 3 centers. Or maybe you're contracting, going from 6 back down to 4. Like, at that time, you've got to spend more time in the business than with the family. But it has to go back and forth. If you're always leaning on the business and giving the business 80 to 100 hours a week, you're not going to have a family. You're not going to have a social life. And you're going to like show up at some nice event and say, I got to go tinkle, which is a sure sign that you're not spending enough time with adults. Because if you say, I got to go potty, we know you haven't spent enough time with the other adults that you theoretically know, right? So you've got to make sure that sometimes you're spending more time with your social circle and your family than you are in the business. It's got to go back and forth like that seesaw, I think.
Yeah, I want to say this is only just my personal experience. I agree with you, but I think there could be another arm to that balance, because I do think that we as women tend to go business or family. Where's you? So make sure that somewhere in that middle, maybe you're that center bar that holds those things together, but make sure you are part of that conversation, because that was something I learned the hard way. I was always giving to one or the other. The other thing too is, I would say, and I love what you said, let's have dinner here at the center. I've got to do XYZ, have dinner at the center. My children are older now, and so I get to enjoy things a little differently. So when I go away and travel now, I say to my kid, where do you want to go? I'm going to Texas. I took my son-in-law. I went to Georgia. I took my daughter. So we still had quality time. I went to a conference, but when we were done, we went to the Georgia Aquarium, which was the coolest aquarium I have ever seen in my life.
Shark?
Oh my God! Right? But we got
amazing.
to experience that together during a work trip. So, you can get real creative in a way where these two things, as we say balance, sometimes it seems like they're competing. They don't always have to compete. I have found over 25 years a way to make it more like an ocean where they flow together. So, and don't forget yourself. And don't forget
that
yourself.
Whole take yourself seriously, that is the last chapter of the book. We end with that.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself, you have to take care of yourself first. It's that whole, you can't pour from an empty bucket.
Yeah.
So that's how we end the book. You've got to take care of you.
Yeah. And there may be some stories in there that people are going to go, hadn't thought of that. Or, at some point in time, you do become an empty nester if you started this industry with kids. So I agree with you 100%. Make sure you know what your hobbies are. Because for decades, my hobbies were whatever my kids' hobbies were. That and planning my calendar, and that doesn't sound very exciting to somebody when they're like, what do you do for fun? I'm like, I play on my Franklin planner with my colored pens.
So let me ask you this, because I feel this is really important, but let's talk about how important is networking and growing a childcare business. Like, how important is that, and what strategies can entrepreneurs use to build meaningful connections?
Business cards. There we go. That's the whole thing.
Okay, I'm going to take it a step further because this is so my thing. Yeah. So I absolutely can't imagine anybody in any business not networking. You are not, and I don't care even if it's digital networking. I mean, people who are really good at LinkedIn and interacting in social media and Facebook groups and responding to TikToks and stuff like that, you can network without leaving your house. It's not nearly as fun, but you might not put on 30 pounds if you go to lots of lunches. In the meantime, business cards and intentional relationships. So what do I mean by intentional relationships? If you meet somebody at a networking event, it's more than flipping business cards. It's, hey, what do you do? What is your ideal client? Ask them, even if they're an insurance agent, even if they're a chiropractor. Ask them what their ideal client is. And then the next time you run into somebody who would be an ideal client, do an actual introduction and make sure that they get an opportunity to meet each other. My favorite is going to lunch with people I meet at those events and then ask them, who are 5 people you think I need to know? I always send thank you notes after those lunches, always include 2 business cards. I have friends who probably have like more of my business cards than I do, because I am constantly giving everybody 2 business cards. One for you, one for a friend.
And when you're trying to build your network, starting with the concept of what can I do for them? Sorry. Because if you are a giver or a connector, So Kate was talking about being a connector. Some people are great at that. Other people are really good at going, hey, I noticed that your business card, your logo has 7 different colors. And as someone with a marketing background, I'm going to tell you, you need to redo your logo. Can I have it? Can I have the file? And I'll go in and mess with it. Go out and be helpful, because they will remember that more than they're going to remember your face or your name.
Yeah, I 100% believe in that. And the other thing I think, like you said, especially in childcare, the more you're out in your community doing and giving, the more you're going to get noticed. Because if you're at the local park doing a cleanup, or you're at the library doing story time, or not even just you, your teachers with your logoed shirt, like appropriate logo shirt, not too many colors, but your logo shirt, like you're out there doing things in your community, you don't need to be constantly marketing. And then also I would say my biggest tip, and I say it all the time, is take care of the people you have. Everybody is always worried about enrolling because that's beaten into your head. 20 ways to get 18 new customers. Guess what? I don't have room for 18 new customers because I take care of the ones I got. And I don't know how else to say it, but if you are a business owner, take care of your customers first. Take care of your employees first, and you will always have a wait list. I don't care. I opened in 2008, which was the last recession. And I opened up 2 centers literally within 8 weeks of each other. They both were full. So take care of your people, take care of your community. They will take care of you. I believe that with my heart and soul. Heart and soul. That if you do that, you will be successful. So, get out there and make those real life connections too. And it doesn't always have to be you. Like she said, get help, empower your team to make those connections as well. And it feels good to help people.
I'm all about the walking billboards. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gotta love those t-shirts.
And you need to be spending as much time marketing to your existing clients as to potential clients, if not more. Doing stuff to make them raving fans. What's that book? 100 Raving Fans?
Yeah. So, is there anything I haven't asked you that you really want to... Yeah, I love that book. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you really want to leave with people?
I want to just say, regardless of where you are, whether you are thinking about starting an entrepreneurial journey, you're in the middle of entrepreneurial journey, find your team, find your tribe, because you know what? You can't do this by yourself, and we absolutely know that you got this.
And I want to say, don't be afraid to start. Don't be afraid to start, and you will mess something up. And you know what? Marie Forleo says everything is figure outable. So go out, start it, and if something breaks, just go figure it out, because you've got this. Don't be an analysis paralysis. Go do the thing.
That is great words of wisdom. Thank you guys so much for being wonderful guests. Tell folks where they can find you. Give them your IG accounts, all that good stuff.
The easiest thing is Childcare Conversations across the board. So Facebook, IG, TikTok, Pinterest, and even our domain name. Everything is Childcare Conversations. So childcareconversations.com, and then at. So.
Okay. You made it very easy. I love that.
Yes.
So to my folks there that are listening, who tune in every day, I appreciate you so much. I really, really do. I keep looking at my stats, and you guys are just from California to Florida to Texas, Rhode Island, you guys, and everywhere in between. I really, truly appreciate you. I want to thank you for tuning into the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. If today's episode gave you a boost of inspiration that you needed, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an update. If you're feeling generous, well, leave us a review, share the podcast with your network. Like they said, tell a friend, and follow us on Instagram at CCDC. Yep, I didn't spell it out because it was too long. CCDC podcast on Instagram, and or Childcare Director's Chair podcast on YouTube and all of the other listening platforms. Thank you again so much. And remember, it's the small details that make a big impact in the success of your childcare business. Have a great day.